Hey there, welcome to, you guessed it, this chord's right in the way. No, Creative Crusade, my ongoing art journey, if I can. This video was suggested by, Turk Kazursti Adam. I'm sorry, Adam, I don't mean to be butchering your name, but I'm having a really hard time pronouncing it. And thank you for the video suggestion, by the way. It gives me more content to create, and I really enjoy helping people, so I'm glad I can help, and I hope this helps you, so. Righto, so first things first, we're going to do the crumpled paper and my references hidden behind all this stuff because my setup is very janky. So, we got our thingamabob here. So first off, like in this exercise, you grab your ruler, which I don't know where mine is. Yeah, there it is. Cool. So I'm just going to be doing 2 textures today. Well, 2 boxes filled with texture today. So I'm just going to have somewhere in here, just going to draw. So it's the first weapon. What the heck? Whoopsie-doo. A nice little square. Not big, not medium, little. A nice little square. Yes. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on these just because time constraints. So I'll just put a divider in the middle of this, if you know what I'm saying. So we'll have the paper ball up here and the crumpled paper down there. For the papered ball, this one is much easier to look at because there is much deeper values in it. And when doing this, you have to, because the things are very subtle, the gradations between the shadows and the light, and because those are very subtle, and if you only have black and white to work with, it's extreme contrast. So it's ridiculously difficult to do this one, especially because everything's so subtle. So what I like to do with paper specifically is you just kind of have to choose a value range and kind of ignore everything above that. And what I mean by that is, like, say you have, if you look at your reference, you have a really dark, you have your value spectrum, you got your black and white. And you have to pick somewhere along the spectrum to choose to be that you're going to target as shadows, because you only can draw, again, you only have black and white. So you got to choose a amount of light or amount of darkness, amount of shadow that you're going to capture. Because if you try to capture everything, you can't. It's just, you don't have enough value range because all you have is black and white. You're going to take a specific value on there and ignore everything above that value. Like, I'll just take something probably more the darker side, and I'll ignore anything that's lighter than that because I have to in order to use this limitation to my advantage. So, just like the way I like to apply my constructions and stuff, the way I like to do textures, I'm going to map out my stuff first. So it's like, we got this shape here, you know what I'm saying? And it's gonna be dark. Voice crack there. Well, we just pretend that didn't happen, okay? It's gonna be like that. And there's another piece of paper that's in front of this. It's gonna look something like this. Like this, you know what I say, right? Could be. And this may not even necessarily look like a piece of paper ever, because what I'm working with, well, first off, I'm not extremely experienced in this. So that's a main factor of why I may not be able to pull this off. But also because that the paper itself is just not very easy to do, because it's it's a smooth surface that's wrinkled. So you have a lot of, in order to accurately portray it, you need to have different ranges of values that you can work with. And you absolutely can do that with black and white. It's not going to look as realistic simply because you're limiting yourself. So you can't render out that full accuracy because you're limiting yourself from being able to do that, if that makes sense. So I'm just like choosing spots within here, and I'm trying not to outline, because you're not supposed to outline. You're supposed to only be drawing cast shadows, right? So it's going to get difficult as I go. So I'm going to use my brush pen to fill these in because they're going to be filled in anyway. So I'm just going to just so I don't get confused with what needs to be filled in later on. It's always good to avoid confusion when you're trying to work with this stuff because it can be very confusing. Like literally, I kid you not. The more confusion it is, the more confusing it is. So back to it then, eh? I'm going to outline the outside shape of this just because it's a paper ball. It just shows the silhouette. So we have this piece that comes in like here. I'm just going to try to get the whole silhouette in so I know what I can work with. And I'm not trying to be like super 100% accurate, just getting the general shape. And remember, paper always beats rock, but scissors, that beats paper. So if you're having trouble with this exercise, get a pair of scissors and cut it up, because then you win. Yeah, it makes no sense whatsoever. I'm so not funny at all. And I'm looking at my reference a lot here to really just verify what it is I'm drawing in the correct way, if you know what I'm saying. And sorry my face is down at this weird spot, you know. It's just, my reference over there is kind of blocked and I didn't really do much about it. So it's kind of weird, if you know what I'm saying. So, see, I'm running into a problem here of that value problem where the values I chose are getting a little bit too light here, so I can't really accurately portray all of this because my values are, it's above my value range that I chose to deal with. So I'm just going to deal with what I can, because what else can you do? There's like a few values in here that I think are close to it, so I'm going to go ahead and include them. And back up here, just going to define this piece that's going in front. There's quite a dark spot in here. Does in diddly-eyed. It comes around and has this really nice dark black spot over here. If you know what I'm saying. Biscuities. And this already doesn't look like paper at all to me, so I mean, this exercise is just, I really don't think it's beginner friendly because as a beginner, you're not, well, myself, I speak from experience in this anyway, so I don't know if your experience was different. So, and as I said, because this value is just ridiculous, I'm going to just kind of choose this whole area to be dark because that's the value range I chose. So it kind of has to be. I can leave some spots a little bit brighter, I suppose, if I'm really down into it, you know what I'm saying? If you catch my driftles, like this piece kind of here has a little shine to it, so I can kind of preserve that a little bit by drawing an outline of it. But the rest is going to have to be black because I only have black and white to work with, so that's kind of the way the dice rolled, I suppose, if you know what I mean. And the rest will have to be black, then we'll go into smaller details. I did push record, right? Oh, good. I've done that before where I've forgotten to push record, and it's really not a fun day when that happens. Very frustrating. Looks like this has an increased shadow that I forgot to outline, or a further shadow, I shouldn't say increased. That could cause confusion. Confusaldor. Nonsensical words. But yeah, thanks for coming and hanging out and drawing with me. And learning alongside with me in my art journey. Always appreciate it. Alright, so we can do some more details in here. Tis a little odd. Oh, yeah, baby. So there's a very, very small detail here. It's almost complete. It looks like it's completely out of my value range, but it could be. But I'm gonna go ahead and include it just because it's red in that edge there of being included, but not. And it also can make a cool small detail that'll increase some visual information for the viewer. Make some really tiny details, which can hopefully help show like the cracks, or not the cracks, but like the wrinkles and stuff in this. And I'm trying to only get the ones that are like close to my value range that I chose. I might occasionally include one that's a little bit below it or above it because or rather a bit above it, because it can help make this a little more visually interesting. Like one up here, it can help show that this is indeed wrinkling in this way. And it's a little bit above my value range, but that's okay, it's just a little bit. Now if it was something crazy high like the white spot, I'm not going to even go near that, because that's clearly not what I need to do. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of really only choose the really dark spots to mess with, because there's a lot more light here. And sometimes you may even need to scatter your line, as in like not do it continuously, like don't draw your line continuously like that, but kind of scatter it like that. So it implies that's a much lighter line than it is. No, it implies less detail or a much lighter shadow. So I mean, this is I don't even know what this looks like. I mean, I could, knowing that it is a piece of, or a wrinkled up ball of paper, I can kind of tell. I can kind of look for that, but it looks still a little weird. Like if I just looked at this without knowing what it was, it wouldn't make any sense to me. Like, what is this thing? And it's just really difficult to accurately capture a piece of paper with just black and white. Well, wrinkled up, that is. It is for me anyway, so. But that's how I would do a wrinkled piece of paper. Let's go ahead and do a normal piece of paper. Let us actually increase the contrast on this one so we can really see what it would actually look like if it was very close to black and white. This is what it looks like, super blown out and super contrasty. And it's almost looks like a gum wrapper or something. But it's quite, it's still, even like this, it's really difficult to draw, because there's still a lot of like mid-tones and values and stuff. And it definitely makes it a little bit easier, but it still is difficult. And in this, essentially, you just got to do the same thing of choose a value range, and everything below that you will just make black, and the rest you just leave white. Let's go ahead and do that too. So for this one, let's just ink right into it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. This one definitely is very dark down here, so we can draw this bit. You know what I'm saying? And like this part where it gradationates off into bright, it's really hard to kind of choose how to do that. I kind of like to just make kind of a long line like that, which is kind of scraggly line. Doesn't really work sometimes, but it's the best I can really know how to do to show a gradation of some kind. But because you can't just have nothing there, because you have to have something black or white. And it's just such a frustrating thing to work with initially, but it's actually really good to learn how to portray things with just black and white, because then you start to figure out, you start simple and then you work your way up to more complex stuff, and it's just very beneficial to be able to work with very limited stuff, because again, like it simplifies everything into much simpler things. And this is fun to do when you're not, just don't stress over it too much, because it's really easy to do that. Like way too easy to stress over this, because it's just so difficult to accurately portray, So just don't worry about it too much, and move on to another texture if you're really struggling with the paper one, because I found that I could do other textures much better than I can do this paper one, for example, because it still is like really hard for me to do. And try to get this good stuff. You know what I'm saying? I say that too much. You know what I'm saying? And this doesn't really look like it, but that's what can you do? Getting upset doesn't really help. So just use it as a learning experience. It is what it is, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You'll have to try again at another point in your life. Just because you're unable to accomplish it right now, like I'm not able to, doesn't mean you can't ever come back when you're ready to face it again. and slaughter it and show it your true capabilities as a true master of the pen. You show it who's boss. Do not let it defeat thee, but learn from thine defeats and face it again. Anyway, there's your inspirational speech for the day. I don't really know what to explain other than like I'm looking for these values and I'm just kind of trying to choose them wisely and not over choose and not under choose. But as in I'm trying to put in enough detail but not too much. Because too much detail will make it look too detailed or overworked, and it's just not. But it's still a learning experience, so the goal isn't necessarily to make it look nice, but to make it look right and to use your failure as a learning experience. I feel like I've already said this 100,000 times in this video alone. You'll get there eventually, lad. Diddly-eye. So I'm just going to continue to lay in a few more big things down here, and then I'll kind of go back and see if there's any smaller details I want to add. Maybe there's a big crack right here. And for smaller details, again, it's going to be mainly in those really, really wrinkled spots, like kind of in that middle left part. You can see how there's a lot of little mini wrinkles. And there you can find some pretty dark values, but it's not going to be like really significant. So like they're just going to be like these little things like that. And maybe like they're not going to be much bigger than those, just from what I'm seeing. And they usually seem to be in kind of clusters as well. Maybe we'll throw like a couple more in somewhere. Like there's also this thing here, which is a really deep groove. And the right side of it gets a little pretty dark too. So that's kind of cool. Kind of cool, dude. Also seems to kind of connect into that. And then there's like this one of them that has an interesting shape. Alright, so that still doesn't really look like paper to me. Again, though, if I know the context of it is paper, I can kind of see it. It's not like, it's just so difficult for me to really understand this one. Just again, because those really subtle gradations in the paper. And it's just really difficult to show those with just black and white. You can't show subtlety with just black and white, gradation wise. Well, using this method of drawing, you can if you do like cross hatching and stuff, but Drawbox doesn't want you to do that. No cross hatching or anything. No really shading methods besides solid coloring. So within the context of just solid coloring, it's very difficult to portray this particular texture because it's very subtle in how it is. So that's kind of how I draw, that is how I draw that paper texture. I hope this helped you, especially you, Adam. Thank you, by the way, for suggesting this video. And if you or anybody else have a video suggestion, please do ask, because it's very helpful for me to know what I can help you with, so I can dedicate my resources onto helping you and, well, knowing what you want to see. I hope this helped you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later.